Majority Report with Sam Seder.
The destiny of America is always safer in the hands of the people than in the conference rooms of any elite.
Sam Seder.
They are unanimous in their hate for me, and I welcome their hatred.
We must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex.
The Majority Report with Sam Seder.
Ever get the feeling you've been cheated?
Steps from the industrially ravaged Gowanus Canal in the heartland of America, downtown Brooklyn, USA. On today's program, the crew is here, minus the 4-day work week man, and we are covering the news. Will the hearing with Kavanaugh and his accuser happen? Looking unlikely. Dr. Ford correctly requesting an FBI investigation before this important moment, while Republicans on the committee say, no, we don't have time to investigate this. Make sure that nobody accidentally perjures themselves or gets grilled or contradicts themselves or gets into trouble, because we care so much about the voices of women. We just can't wait. Hurricane Florence has pounded the Carolinas, killing several people, dozens of people, I believe. I don't have the number in front of me. And also unleashing mass environmental pollution in the form of American agriculture. North Korean leader meets with the South Korean leader. They hug and pledge more work towards denuclearization, although the North Koreans are asking for reciprocal moves by the United States as the Korea crisis drama civilian casualties in Idlib province in Syria, as a lot of people across the political spectrum seem unable to occupy multiple obvious perspectives on that one at the same time. And the United States coup-mongering in Venezuela aligning with the far right, and Nicolas Maduro taking a break in Turkey to house some steak with Salt Bae. Not a good look. In fact, one of the worst looks in steak-related news. Fernando Haddad is surging in the polls as the Lula vote transfer starts. It's looking like Lula da Silva might literally win an election from a prison cell. All that and much, much more on today's Majority Report. The crew is here. Brendan Finn, fresh back from Texas, is in the co-commander chair.
Hey, everyone.
Are you in the right? I think you should be a bit more this way.
There you go.
There you go.
That's good.
Good to see you, Brendan.
Thanks,
we missed
guys.
you. Jamie is here. Jamie Peck.
Hello.
Matt Leck is here.
Hi.
We went late on TMBS last night. That was like a 4-hour show.
Gets lit when Alona comes in.
It does. Alona and I and the team have a very good time. A lot of diversions. Also, we went deep on the Rachel Maddow impressions, but we'll get to that later. But it was like, there was a point in the show where every single person in the studio was, what was it? What was the crack? Everybody's crackling.
They have a sound effect of crumpling paper when they go to commercial. And
course
Maddow
they
does
do.
it herself, but they literally have an artificial one that they play.
I have an artificial, what was it? Blue Rachel Maddow. The real question is, was Stormy Daniels turned on? Okay. Trying to lighten the mood because there really is actually a lot of pretty depressing news to get to, but we will start in a, I don't know. This is very Trump. It's depressing and it's disturbing and it's very funny. This is Donald Trump talking about Florence, this horrible hurricane that people in the Carolinas are dealing with. And, just think of there's one specific term about water that you'll probably catch in this one.
I just want to thank all of the incredible men and women who have done such a great job in helping with Florence. This is a tough hurricane, one of the wettest we've ever seen from the standpoint of water. Rarely have we had an experience like it, and it certainly is not good. But the people of North Carolina, South Carolina, Virginia, all of the areas affected, you've been incredible. There's been a loss of life, and may God be with them and their families. That's a tough one. It's tough to understand, but this has been a really difficult period of time for a lot of people. FEMA, the job you've done, the military, Coast Guard, what you've done in saving so many lives has been really something special. Law enforcement, always. Again, I just want to thank everybody for doing such a great job with a very difficult situation. Florence has been a nasty one, a big one, like that area certainly has never seen before. So the waters are still rising. Listen to your state and local authorities. Be patient, be alert, and God bless you.
It sounds like he's doing like shout outs in the end of like after doing 4 fire verses.
You mean, well, yeah, but except not really. It sounds like he's doing shout out on like maybe a remix you don't care about and you're really high.
Do you want to hear a remix?
Yeah, I do.
You've been incredible. There's been a loss of life, and may God be with them and their families. That's a tough one. It's tough to understand, but this has been a really difficult period of time for a lot of people. FEMA, the job you've done, the military, Coast Guard, what you've done in saving so many lives has been really something special. Law enforcement, always. Again, I just want to thank everybody for doing such a great job with a very difficult situation. Florence has been a nasty one.
You know what? The part that you're most right about in terms of the shout out after fire verses is like the way he says and law enforcement is the same way that a rapper says their city, like and Queensbridge, like, you know, like it's always like backed, like it's like, and of course Queensbridge, like you always go there. It's like, and law enforcement, of course we got to shout out law enforcement
forever.
You know what's funny about this is an interesting Trump mode because he's obviously, we know, like when he's raging or he's bloviating or he's like on a narcissistic high, but usually when he's like bored and disinterested he gets like really bitchy. But this is like he's bored obviously because he's just like, yeah, there's water and it's a lot, but he's sort of like, they voted for me, so I'll be like affably, like it's like a kid who can't be quiet somewhere but like in a non-temper tantrum way. It's like that's an interesting Trump mode when he's just like, I don't really give a fuck, but whatever. We love Carolina, and of course, shouts to law enforcement. Lots of water.
He sounds like he's shilling Trump steaks when he's in this mode.
No,
like,
he's way more serious about Trump steaks than this. Right, way more serious about Trump steaks.
Better spend more time on the copy.
No, he's in funeral selfie mode right now.
That's yes. Funeral for like somebody
funeral selfie
that he doesn't feel he needs to pretend that they died too much.
So yesterday he went on Twitter saying, right now everybody is saying what a great job we are doing with Hurricane Florence, and they are 100% correct. But don't be fooled. At some point in the near future, the Democrats will start ranting. That mic's in the way.
That's great.
That FEMA, our military, and our first responders, who are all unbelievable. I don't know if that unbelievable means what he thinks it is. Are a disaster and not doing a good job. This will be a total lie, but that's what they do, and everybody knows it! Exclamation point.
Always the exclamation point. We'll get to the serious note of this for a second. And I'm quoting now from the Raleigh Observer. And do we actually, Brendan, would you mind looking up the amount of people? I don't want to feel like we're glossing over.
The death count's at 32, according to The Guardian.
Okay, so already, obviously, this is already a terrible event, and a lot of people have lost their lives. And it's going to take a lot in a lot of ways to get out from this. But this specifically is actually a really serious problem from a public health environmental perspective. The Raleigh News and Observer says the number of hogs and poultry killed in Hurricane Florence flooding has already doubled the casualties from Matthew in 2016, and the losses are expected to mount this week as new information comes from farmers as they gain access to their properties. And basically, the hog lagoons pose, and I'm continuing to quote, hog lagoons are literally fecal matter and runoff from these torture cages that they keep pigs in, which even for those of us, I don't eat pork products, but I'm not a vegetarian. But I would say that, like, the condition that these animals are held in should be a strong moral objection for everybody, including people who aren't vegetarians or vegans. I mean, it's just obscene, savage cruelty. And there's a lot of movements actually from the industry to attempt to criminalize reporting and exposure of their abuses across the board, in this case pigs. So basically these pigs are kept in these torture cages. They don't move. They have very little air. They're fed a terrible diet. They're pumped out and they're murdered. And basically their waste is in these lagoons. And I think is this actually a picture of what we're talking about?
It's a picture, yeah.
This is a lagoon to give you the sense of the scope and the size. That is, and pardon my language, but this is literally like a pig shit lake.
Well,
right?
This isn't technically the pig shit. Like,
well, this is not the pig
shit.
This
is where the pigs live, and you can see they drowned in those.
They drown. Okay, but where are the lagoons?
I can look for a lagoon.
Oh, okay, I understand. This is the cages where they've drowned. Okay,
yeah.
Okay, got it. And obviously, the rotting corpses of all these animals is a major problem in and of itself for things like E. coli. But these lagoons of waste, which already pose serious threats to local waterways and soil erosion and things like that on a good day, are amplified in this crisis situation. Hog lagoons pose an environmental contamination risk because swine feces and urine contain bacteria pathogens including Salmonella, E. coli, and fecal coliform. Hog lagoons are the most common way. That's the brown thing. That literally is it. Yeah. So take a look at this. This is on a mass industrial scale. This is the way we do farming in this country and in any industrialized country with no regulations on this thing. Hog lagoons are the most common way farmers process pig waste, a treatment system in which microorganisms break down waste matters into nutrients and byproducts that can be used as fertilizer. However, the public health risks from hog lagoons, and it goes on. Now, this is all happening at the same time that the Trump administration is moving forward new moves to weaken protections around chemical plants. Since it made rainfall, now I'm quoting from The Hill, since it made rainfall, Florence continues to wreak havoc. The storm was attempted to drop 18 trillion gallons of rain over the course of a week, enough to fill the Chesapeake Bay. That can mean a flooding at more than 1,000 sites in the storm's path where toxic chemicals are used or stored. If these facilities are damaged, they could release chemicals that threaten public health and the environment. Why, then, is the Trump administration's EPA seeking to weaken regulation aimed at preventing this exact kind of disaster across the country? More than 2,500 toxic chemical waste sites are located in areas at high risk of flooding. The changing climate makes floods more likely. Those risks will only grow. That's why the U.S. Chemical Safety Board and independent federal investigators urge companies, emergency planners, and regulators to assess the chemical industry's preparedness for hurricane floods. Despite these risks, the Trump EPA is currently working to gut the risk management program rule. So, the answer we all know is obvious, of course, which is that all of the Republican Party is purely a subsidiary of any corporate interest in America. And also, as with all of these other long-standing problems we're dealing with, these policies were not addressed and in many cases expedited and supported by Democratic politicians who also receive significant campaign contributions from the agriculture industry. So, And I think that's also useful, like when a tragedy, something strikes that is, that's like a hurricane. So we could obviously probably connect it to the climate crisis. I think, I don't know. There is like, though, that kind of like disaster porn phenomenon and the weather guys with their, rain jackets and everything. And it's like, look, I think obviously people should donate to credible and legitimate sources for mutual aid and relief to help people there. And then the other value is to cover these stories in such a way that they expose the structural issues that they go to the heart of. And we literally have this incredible timing of another relentless storm that is going to pose huge environmental and public health implications. And of course, the Trump administration is and the Republican Party are planning a whole lot more for us.
Do we know what happened to the people in the prison that was not going to be evacuated?
I know some people drowned. I don't know if that's in the prison.
Jesus Christ.
Well, that's not in the prison. That was in a van, and apparently people inside the van were still locked inside. I should look for the story, but
we need to
two
find
prisoners
that story.
did die, but I don't know what actually happened to
They
that
wouldn't
prison.
release the prisoners?
No, I'll look that up here.
Yeah, I don't know that story. That's disgusting and not surprising. If you like, and actually seriously, I mean, this is, it always makes sense, but this is really quite appropriate, so I'll start it now. If you like the stories you hear on our show, you'll like the Sierra Club's new storytelling podcast, The Land I Trust. Season 2 of The Land I Trust Now is out now, bringing you storytellers from across the western U.S. who share their experiences in harvesting, protecting, and living with our 4 natural elements: water, fire, wind, and air. The series has 14 tales of individuals across the western part of the country as they share their tales of climate change, clean energy, and everything in between. Each year, the Sierra Club visits a different region of the country for a new set of stories. Season 1, Stories from the American South, talk to musicians, families, farmers, and climate refugees, helping to move the South from coal ash pollution to a brighter, cleaner future. You can listen to The Land I Trust at beyondcoal.org/stories. That's beyondcoal.org/stories, or an Apple Podcast, Stitcher, Google Play, or wherever you get your podcasts. Check out Season 2 of The Land I Trust today. Quite appropriate. Okay, go ahead.
So this is Brianna Sachs. 2 female mental health patients drowned in South Carolina after floodwaters overtook their jail transport van. The Horry County deputies driving the vehicle tried to rescue them, but local media says they were chained in the back.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah, there doesn't seem to be follow-up yet on the prisons that were.
And so the prisons literally were not evacuated.
Yeah.
They were like, you're just gonna ride this out in here.
And the staff, yeah.
Yeah, there was a huge
And
public
the staff.
outcry.
That actually should be a lesson for some people.
No, they did evacuate the officers, I believe.
Yeah.
There was a huge public outcry about it, and they're like, you know what? It's safest not to evacuate them, which is fucking horrible.
I mean, both of these things are very central to what's gone wrong in America. The factory farming and the prison stuff, right? Like that's the thing to focus on when these sorts of disasters hit, is where are we most vulnerable? What sort of like awful monstrosity is going to get people killed that we've just been allowing to like sit in our backyards for years?
That's exactly right. Let's talk about actually, this will have implications for these types of events and issues we're talking about, because everything from prisons to the ability to reverse the just all-consuming ecological crisis, a lot of it is going to depend on the courts. And the Republicans have been packing the courts for quite some time. And there's obviously a much needed broader left strategy for the court, but now we find ourselves in the midst of this Kavanaugh drama, which, as we were covering last night on TMBS, we really wanted to sort of run that parallel history of what happened in 1991 with Anita Hill and Clarence Thomas, and just the overarching reality of there's been some small steps, there's actually been potentially some back steps, and also that if Kavanaugh is confirmed, and I actually think they might be getting ready to throw this guy over, and they could still get a person on the court, even if they do, pretty easily. you will have two people who have been, I'll put it this way, exceedingly credibly alleged to have engaged in, I'm not going to say, I don't like the phrase sexual misconduct, an attempted sexual assault and sexual harassment, to be really specific. You will have 2 of 9 justices making cases, setting law in a completely democratically unaccountable fashion. This is the only moment in a justice's career cycle where they have any type of public accountability. They might choose to do TV interviews. Antonin Scalia, who was, of course, a reactionary and just a thug of the worst order, I will say the one thing I will give him, he was a frequent speaker on college campuses and sort of generally made himself, relatively speaking, more available to be argued with. But that's completely at his discretion. There's very little democratic accountability for these people. And if there was, Clarence Thomas certainly would have been impeached and removed. The conflicts of interest with his far-right political operative wife alone mean he should not be on the court. The tide might be changing, though, on Kavanaugh. There's a couple of things. Sam pointed this out to me yesterday. I don't remember whether it was something he noted or somebody else, so forgive me, but he was talking to me after the show. The B team is out to defend Kavanaugh on TV, at least in the last couple of days. You're seeing a lot of kind of like pundit types and other sort of like right-wing hacks. You're not seeing a lot of, frontline politicians. You're not seeing a lot of doubling down from the Judiciary Committee. You're even, of course, seeing the kind of usual ambiguous statements from even someone like Lindsey Graham. And now we have Donald Trump adding his ambiguity to the mix. And my only read of this is just that all he cares about, obviously, is this winning and losing perception and protecting his own ass. And it seems to me, look, Trump just says stuff, so you can't read that much in some ways, but it seems to me that he wouldn't be hinting at this or saying this if he didn't have a sense of maybe this guy's a loser and it's time to pull the plug.
Hopefully, the woman will come forward, state her case. He will state his case before representatives of the United States Senate, and then they will vote. They will look at his career. They will look at what she had to say from 36 years ago, and we will see what happens. But I just think he is at a level that we rarely see, not only in government, anywhere in life.
I just want to really underscore, and of course he's still supporting Kavanaugh, but I think especially by Trump standards, even just the saying, and of course, please, there is no praise for Trump in this, but even him just saying she should be heard would not be what I'd expect to hear from him if he's mobbing up for Kavanaugh. The other thing is, and I keep making this point, if he is lying today, which I think he is, we don't know he is, I think he is, I believe her, I don't believe him in this instance, certainly, then it's a live issue today because he's lying about it. If the dude came out at the beginning of his hearings and he said 35 years ago I did X, this is on the table, never did anything else like it, I apologize, so on, blah, blah, blah. To be honest with you, I'm not going to lie. I'm mercenary, and I think there's far more important things of just getting this guy to not be on the court. So I might still say, screw him. But not because I don't buy the principle of people having redemption and nobody being defined by one event in their lives. And as of course, this isn't going to go anywhere, but obviously I welcome Republicans to the newfound principle that people's teenage conduct should not destroy their lives. It seems to only apply when it's, well, let's actually be really specific, not just a white guy, but a far-right white guy who's about to get a Supreme Court seat to lock in 21st century feudalism. That's when all of a sudden we can look past childish indiscretions. We have people on sex offender registries that they can't get off of for life because they might have been 18 and slept with a 16-year-old. Okay? Like, we have 13-year-olds who might have committed a really terrible crime. serving life sentences with adults. And I don't hear a mumbling word, as Cornel West would say, about any of those things from these people. But that being said, he didn't do that. He's denying it. And there's an exceedingly credible allegation against him and a bizarre weirdo freak friend of his who was also involved supposedly in the incident, allegedly in the incident, who we should also hear more from. So every day he denies it and she says it's so is a day that it's happening now. So we can dismiss that talking point quite easily.
Well, the thing to watch with Trump saying she should be heard and any of these Republicans is they want her to go under oath before the investigation happens, the FBI investigation.
Right.
Which basically means, like, she's not going to have the benefit of the FBI come in saying, okay, we established this party was here and then, right? It was a long time ago. The way that process would have went is, they talk about it and they interview some people and then they lay out the facts. But the Republicans want to play this game where if she messes up one of the metadata details, like why did you go to this party? Who was throwing the party? Right?
They can use it, and we played it, and this was Joe Biden's big failure, right? Like, those Republicans gutted Anita Hill. And some of the things that they did, they couldn't, in the popular media environment, they couldn't do as easily today, right? Like asking her, like, oh, well, aren't you just upset about your own dating life? And that's why you're going after Judge Thomas, this type of thing. But also, and we'll play Anita Hill in a second, but also, even if she is telling the truth, I mean, I don't know if this is what they do, but I mean, even she could be telling the truth in all of the kind of correct broad strokes. They could you could probably walk anybody into a perjury charge talking about something that happened 35 years ago if you asked the right set of questions and got them to misidentify the right details and then had a retroactive
and the insinuations about her motivations are just ridiculous because
right.
She didn't choose how this played out, right? From her perspective, she might have just said, like, well, this happened to me. I'm going to report this to a senator because what happens if there's more reports of this, right? Like, she
and
has
from
no
all
idea
intents and purposes, that's actually
what she did.
That's what she did. That's the only rational read of it.
Not to mention trauma, particularly sexual trauma, affects the memory. Like, this has been shown. So it's pretty unfair to expect her to remember every single detail. And it's also pretty fucked up the way an assailant can simultaneously assault someone and then render them an unreliable witness to their own life.
Well, there's also the argument that Republicans are playing this and that it is in good faith and they want her to talk. And they've said, well, maybe we'll have our female staffers question her instead of 11 or however many white guys that are Republicans. And Bob Corker even said, Republicans extended a hand in good faith. If we don't hear from both sides on Monday, let's vote. And that's like your resistance, Republican.
Well, of course, because we all know that they're full of it, and we all know that this is exactly the type of disingenuous fig leaf thing they play. And by the way, I don't know how people read it, but I actually, look, again, it is structurally a problem, the makeup of that Judiciary Committee, racially and gender-wise, and what that reflects about America. But I actually find the specific offer unbelievably condescending and infantilizing to women. Like, that's ridiculous. I don't like that essentialist nonsense from anybody. Period. And the fact that they think that they're making don't worry, dear, we'll have women talk to you.
Unelected
That's disgusting. That's disgusting.
They're unelected, but they are women. So
they're unelected. We'll talk. Oh no. Oh, I know. Well, that will trigger. No, what's going to upset anybody is that you're there basically trying to destroy her in national press, because she came forward and might jeopardize your politics. What is this clip that you put up? I don't.
Which one?
Oh, sorry, the one.
That's
Barry Weiss. Okay, let's go to Anita Hill. This is Anita Hill, and I've been, we spent a lot of time on this last night on TMBS. I'm not gonna. I mean, look. Of course, I think that there's a political relevance to this. I think there's political relevance to the fact that Joe Biden was literally like a credit card senator in the sense that the credit card industry wrote the bankruptcy bill that he pushed through, I believe, in 2005, which is unbelievably harmful to working and middle-class people. And that actually one of the first major exposures Elizabeth Warren had was writing and advocating against that bankruptcy bill that Joe Biden pushed through. I get it. He's a likable guy. I will totally vote for him over Donald Trump. But people need to actually be quite serious about this record, because he's going to frame himself as a major advocate of women. And I want to say that first, there's the question with regards to his conduct with the Anita Hill hearings. And then I have to say, yes, I have no doubt that the provisions he put in the crime bill, probably, I don't know enough, but I'm willing to say I'm sure that they contain some very helpful and important provisions to protect women, particularly in issues of domestic violence. But it also was in the context of the mass incarceration crime bill, which we all rightfully recognize was a massive expansion of the carceral state and a huge problem. So even Biden's sort of feminism is connected with prison industrial complex. And if we can't get out of that, then we're not going to get out of any kind of fundamental justice, where we need to go in terms of these issues.
Joe Biden, carceral feminist.
Joe Biden, carceral feminist. This is Anita Hill talking with Ari Melber.
No, he's introduced.
Oh, excuse me. She's not with him, though?
No, it's an interview that he's teasing.
Okay, this is Ari Melber teasing an interview with Anita Hill. But there is her in this clip talking about, okay. And she talks about her experience and Biden in those hearings.
Democrat chairing that committee, though, Joe Biden, who has gone on to apologize for his approach to Anita Hill, and she reflects on that in a newly released, never before aired interview.
I think Chairman Biden really believed that he was acting in a way that was fair to the nominee. And in doing so, I think he completely underestimated that, in fact, he was deferring to power, and to the power of the White House, and to the power of his colleagues. And what that meant was that I would suffer, because I didn't have all of those people behind me.
That's exactly right. And I said I would invite. We were able to play a little bit of it last night, but there's a lot you can go into of the type of attacks that particularly an Orrin Hatch or an Arlen Specter waged at Anita Hill. They're playing it a bit differently now, although as we've already established, where does that list of 65 women come from? What's that about? And then also when it's pressed, I believe, what is the latest standing count? Is about 5 women stand by that original list?
As of yesterday, it was 5. It might be more now.
They knew that this was coming for a long time.
And they knew it was coming. And they knew and he knew. And what we have is we have unaccountable power in the form of Judge Kavanaugh, and not just with this. I want to know more about this guy's gambling stories. I want to know more about this guy's former boss and mentor who had to leave his seat because of actually a similar sexual harassment scandal to what Clarence Thomas was accused of. I want to know about this. I want to know, and I'll make this point really briefly. It's not because his friend wrote novels about drinking and having sex. That is not the issue. The issue is that he wrote, first of all, implying that there was a culture of blackouts and other things that might, in a narrow sense, shed specific light on the incident that he and Kavanaugh are accused of doing in this very credible way. And also, this guy's whole bizarreness in sexual politics. Wrote a column for the Daily Caller calling Barack Obama the first woman president. Yes. Mark Judge is a weirdo. Mark Judge is trying to fuse together some type of sort of latent midlife Catholic spiritual crisis and arch reactionary teachings with his sort of self-concept as some type of Kango hat hedonist. And that type of weird sexist shit and whatever kind of insecurities or whatever, I don't know the best language to do it, to describe it. That is on a continuum from a dude who will go on the Supreme Court, and even if they don't specifically overturn Roe v. Wade, they will vastly curtail it. They will be a consistent vote to harm women's health, women's rights, women's democratic participation in every category. And in an embarrassing, I mean, like, just even think, like, it's just embarrassing that you have a population that wants to infantilize the other half of the population and then also have sex with them. It's embarrassing.
Wait, you don't like to have sex with children?
No, I don't. And maybe that will make, I guess, in that sense, all of the men here are like women podcasters. I guess that's actually what soy boy means. You don't want to have sex with children. I mean, it is bizarre. If you look at the stories of Judge Kavanaugh, you look at the politics of the Republicans on that Judiciary Committee, going back to Judge Thomas, the relentless attacks on Anita Hill, and frankly, I guess she snapped to it, but the other through line of Joe Biden to Dianne Feinstein. And now we know what their agenda for the court is. We know it. This isn't a mystery to anybody. And then the ancillary weird, like, sort of, I don't even know, maybe a Quentin Tarantino character, though that's probably giving him too much credit, is this bizarre guy who writes columns for the Daily Caller about Barack Obama being a chick. I mean, yo, I cannot imagine a greater time for a political, judicial, moral, and cultural inventory, and not of a cry and drink apple cider variety. Let's talk about, or don't drink apple cider. Excuse me. That'll be the ruin of you. And speaking of that, let's really get to what's unfair. We'll do Barry Weiss in the fun half. Because I want to get to this because, you know, Greg Gutfeld's a nothing. He's not funny insofar as I could ever see. And I think I'm pretty good about acknowledging even loathsome people being funny. I think I'm a pretty straight shooter on that. Greg Gutfeld's not funny. His presence of any kind is a mystery to me.
He's the in-house eyebrow raiser. And just think of the language of unfairness here. It's one thing to say, let's pretend we're all like rugged fascists and life isn't fair and life's just hierarchies and you either are or you aren't and go fuck yourself. Okay, I want to defeat that political project and we will, but just cap that language. Don't be talking about people's lives being hurt if this is your attitude. Watch Greg Gutfeld discover victimization in the most perverse way imaginable.
Get rid of courts. This is about winning for a party at any cost, and the cost is perhaps ruining a life. I saw a headline, I won't say where it's from, that said the headline was this: Are Republicans really going to nominate an accused rapist to overturn Roe?
Positive.
Okay, so
yes, they actually did. They've nominated him, so he has been nominated. So not only is that headline the only part of that headline is wrong is that it happened, unless he's reading a headline that was before the nomination.
Main thing, the other thing wrong with it is like it's a dumb question because obviously they would.
It's both wrong, dumb, and obviously, which we could change the name of the 5 to. Go ahead.
Okay, so think about, I would ask the people on both sides, imagine if this was your son, dad, or brother. We often think about, victims, but would you characterize this as fair with the knowledge that we have right now? Is it fair to characterize somebody that way if that is your husband, your brother, your son, or your father? And I think sometimes, well, all the time in politics, we don't think that way, and we will ruin somebody's life just so we can get somebody on the court.
Well, okay, so this is so stupid in so many ways. First of all, these people are not your brother or your uncle or your friend. They're somebody who's going to get an appointment for life to a completely or a very undemocratically accountable branch of government and make policy about everything from healthcare to the environment to voting rights, to the future of privacy in a tech transparency age.
Yeah, like they literally have the power of life or death over millions of people.
Literally. This isn't your uncle saying, hey, I caught a charge that's wrong. Can you help me out? In fact, your uncle that's getting falsely accused, let's just follow the logic of this, okay? Say your uncle or your brother caught a false charge on something. The thing that he might have to worry about would be of someone like Judge Kavanaugh ruling that even though DNA testing has cleared him up, he still has to stay in jail on a technicality, which is the type of way Justice Scalia ruled on things, and all of the other, fascistic thugs that these idiots want to put into the courts and are putting in the courts. So this isn't your friend. This is somebody whose life, who has, as you say, wields enormous power over us. Secondly, life ruined? No, a life ruined is all of the criminal justice policies that all of the politicians that you vote for and put into office, Democrat and Republican, have voted for across the board, for mandatory minimums, nonviolent drug offenders, non-rehabilitation for young offenders for any crime, across the board.
Well,
that's a ruined life. Judge Kavanaugh goes back to another court and, writes some bitch-ass memoir whining about how unfairly he was treated and does the circuit and is still a millionaire.
Well, it's the same shit as always, right? Like, it really speaks to the privilege that these people have, that losing any amount of their position or power over others amounts to ruining their lives.
That is, all of us, I'm assuming in this room, have had opportunities that we would all have considered. Maybe actually in retrospect, at least in my case, I'm not going to spell out what I'm thinking of. I'm glad some of these things didn't happen. But at the time, say you were up for something which you perceived of as a big, lateral step, right? And actually, you're dealing with a lot more problems than Judge Kavanaugh is dealing with, okay? But, you're still relatively...
I don't know. If you know about gambling debts?
Yeah, that is true. Judge... Are you going to be on the Supreme Court? I know. Because the horses don't like you.
This RICO case.
This RICO case, because I thought you were, and now all of a sudden you did this disgusting thing with some broad in high school. It doesn't look like you're going to rule the right way anymore. That actually would be a very cool ending to the story. But that being said, I've never perceived those events, which actually had, at least on a personal level, higher stakes in terms of things like income, which actually really matter and are more material than any of this. But they didn't ruin your life. The guy might not get to be one of the 9 most powerful people on Earth.
I think nobody should really be.
Right.
The Supreme Court should be term limited.
Yeah, the Supreme Court needs to be term limited to begin with. And he might not join this radically dangerous institution and have yet even more power in what has already been an unbelievably easy life.
There's no accountability for any of these people, ever. And, I went to school with some of them, so I know, and I've seen it. God, I can't stop thinking about that weird email that he sent about the weekend that he had with his friends.
I don't even
We
know
did that
one.
the other day, right?
I don't even remember that one.
At the end, I mean, it's weird all the way through, but at the end, it's and, everybody, I expect, will exercise discretion about what we did this weekend, even with spouses. And I was like, okay, if they were just having sex with prostitutes, it would be especially spouses. But even spouses, it's did you kill a prostitute? What the fuck?
Oh, that would be funny. Even it's all right, and as much as I know you want to tell your wife, don't tell her that we killed hookers over the weekend, all right? Just keep your mouth shut. What happened? What is this?
Mark Judge's Facebook.
This is Mark Judge's Facebook. This is Mark Judge's Facebook.
So Mark Judge takes a picture of 4 scantily clad ladies at a pool. Writes,
I like the duck face on the one on the right. That's vintage. You don't see that anymore.
Well, this was
that
2012.
No, I was going to say that went out of culture. I feel like that was 12 to 14, and all of a sudden it stopped. I'm the only one who still does duck faces on Instagram.
And here we see your synthesis of the Catholicism and the lust, because summer, God is good, and it's some women in bikinis.
I think I rest my case.
2 likes, but he got some comments. So he commented first. He says, attraction is not disordered, lust is. And then somebody comments
Dibble.
says, these can be your daughters, Judge. And Mark says, I know. As much as you will call BS on this, as a journalist and photographer, you look for something beautiful and dynamic like this. Trust me, I know my place, LOL.
He's like one of those people who gets sober and then thinks that he doesn't have to do any other work on himself at all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Point.
No, I know exactly what personality type you're talking about. That's exactly right. It's just like, ever since I quit drinking. Anyway.
Wait, is he sober?
I don't know if he's
He
sober.
wrote a memoir about it.
Yeah, didn't he write it? Wasn't that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like Russell Brand talks about this a lot.
Yeah, Russell Brand used his recovery to open up his horizons, not to like just repeat the same stuff over and over. Not to in any way minimize anybody going through that, but I think, yes, you're talking, or they transferred on other things like, George Bush and some of the same temperamental, tendencies persist, right? All right, guys, we're going to go to the fun half where we will take your calls, we will take your IMs, which are already open. And we will talk about Barry Weiss.
By the way, can I
put
just
me in
say
even more of a sour mood?
One more point. If you
go
search
ahead.
Mark Judge Facebook on Twitter, there's some weird pictures that come up. Like, I don't know.
Yeah,
It's
the
a
guy,
very, very
the guy
dark person.
is a weirdo. Okay,
Really weird.
He's really weird, and so
No, they're all like into this Yellow King Opus Dei shit.
Really weird.
Like, we know what happens at those all boys boarding schools.
not good.
It's not healthy.
It's definitely not healthy. Become
Public
a member.
school, baby.
Just don't even go. Become a member of the Majority Report today. Majority.fm/become a member. It's how this show stays alive. It's how we are accountable to nobody but you. And of course, that is the best way to do things. If you ever get into a conversation with other people in the field or even other people outside of it, they are pretty. I mean, now I think it's a little bit more known with like Patreon and stuff, but there still is a lot of, just understandable envy. Like, wow, like you don't have some like capricious corporation like minding you, not supporting the content that needs to be done.
Tim Carney was trying to get somebody in trouble on Twitter, and he said, like, this person is followed by a lot of people in left media. Right, as if, like, Mother Jones should fire somebody for following this guy.
Right.
And it's nice to be able to just reply to that, being like, I think the tweet was good, try to get me fired.
Right, exactly. I actually thought that was a pretty good point about another way that we should be asking questions about Judge Kavanaugh. And you, Tim Carney, probably have to go back to some overlord who's minding you. We will go back to our independent platform that is supported by a large community of people that we're accountable to, which is obviously by far the best way to go. So majority.fm/become a member. The Michael Brooks Show is also very much the same deal. It's actually 100% the same deal. Majority Report is over 90%. Michael Brooks Show is 100%. This weekend on the Illicit History series, part 2 with Joshua Kahn, who's an organizer in Cali, and we're talking specifically about a global strategy for climate action. He's worked everywhere on this issue, from the Philippines to Colombia to Arizona. And last night, Alona Minkowski and I did the sort of parallel tracks of Anita Hill, Brett Kavanaugh, and actually we both told some pretty embarrassing stories about ourselves. In fact, there's a high entertainment value, as there always is on TMBS, and we're getting our legs as we close in on that next 2,000 patrons. And I talked last night about some of the new offerings that we're cooking up as well. So patreon.com/TMBS. Also, you can go Michael Brooks Show on YouTube or subscribe on iTunes. Jamie.
Yeah, so this week on the Antifada, we had on the writer David Cleon, very smart guy.
Smart guy.
Talked about
Nice guy. Smart
talked
guy.
about how the left should approach the Russia story. We talked about, God, I'm so tired. He told a very funny, embarrassing story about Barry Weiss, actually, how she got, she gets caught lying a lot, but this time she got caught lying about apologizing to someone when she didn't, which was pretty amusing.
Barry Weiss is such a schmuckle.
Yeah, no, she's...
Every time I see her, I just want to make a fake Yiddish insults.
What's the female version of a schlemiel?
Schlemiel.
I don't know if there is one.
Schlemieli. I don't know. She's
Schlemiela.
Schlemiela. Dude. Barry Weiss is a Shamila. I like that.
Thank you.
Nice.
So anyway.
That's exactly right, too.
All that and more on this week's Antifada, which is coming out tomorrow. And you can check it out at patreon.com/theantifada, youtube.com/theantifada, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Do you drink? Do you read literature? Does one synthesize those things, Matt Luck?
Yeah, literary hangover. I do those things. And we did the Scarlet Letter. We actually did have beers
Nice.
and talked about Scarlet Letter. Me, Alex, and Kara. Yeah, check that out. I'm also 5 patrons away from triple figures on Patreon. And
all of a sudden you do want the board up, huh?
And and when I get to 100, I'm going to be an audiobook narrator, and I'm.
I was going to say I could see it, but I could hear it, Matt.
Yeah, people will be able to hear it, and maybe they'll see it. Maybe I'll do some periscoping. I don't know. I'm not going to overpromise here, but yeah, I'm going to be doing a Hope Leslie and a novel called The Quaker City by George Lippard. So if you want to hear me read audiobooks, become a patron today, and you'll be able to hear those soon.
You hear that, folks? Matt Leck will read you a bedtime story.
Exactly.
See, Brendan, I'm always pitching the Jerry's Dead, Fish Sucks, Get a Job Patreon experience with you, but...
Maybe when Michael reads some sort of plateau, I'll give like a Ezra Klein type explainer on the interplay of jam band origins in America or something. I don't know. We'll see. There'll be a Brendan Finn project eventually because, there has to be.
There has to be. All right, we're going to see everybody on the fun half.
C'est une poupée qui fait non, 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 non. Toute la journée, elle fait non, 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 non. Elle est vraiment jolie, oui. Que j'en rêve la nuit. C'est une poupée qui fait non, 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 non. Toute la journée, elle fait non, 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 non. Personne ne lui a jamais appris qu'on pouvait dire oui sans même écouter. Elle fait non, 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 sans me regarder. Elle fait non, 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 non. Pourtant, je donnerai ma vie pour qu'elle dise oui. Pourtant, je donnerai ma vie pour qu'elle dise oui. C'est une poupée qui fait non, 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 non. Toute la journée, elle fait non, 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 non. Personne ne lui a jamais appris que l'on peut dire oui.
I feel I have to get the gushing out first. think the day I talked to Sam was like the worst day of my life.
Welcome to the fun half. The tea is being prepared.
The tea is ready to be spilled, folks.
Hell yeah. Unlike Sam, I can actually hear a little bit of boiling in the background without having a nervous breakdown. Yahoo! What's that? Is it boiling? Oh no.
I just want to explain to people. These are a bunch of Toad from Mario Kart drops, and if you don't know why that is relevant, you should listen to the show yesterday.
That's right.
I'm the best. Here we go.
Oh man, that will be very funny to people exactly our age.
Oh, that one's so gross. Oh my god, that's disgusting. What did you think of Alona and I's conversation about on the post game about penis shaming Trump?
I think it's an important conversation.
Yeah, I think
these
so.
are the sort of the brambles that you can get caught up in as a leftist.
I think so. I thought her sort of general compassion for the mushroom penis was very compassionate. And as I said, what did I say? I said the phrase. I think the way it ended was, you in the sort of broad global sense can have whatever you want and not be shamed for it. Donald Trump cannot have anything.
Well, here's the thing. I think if Trump was maybe a nicer person and Stormy Daniels had a better relationship with him, her characterization would have been different.
Wait, because are you going back to perception changing the objective reality, which we know both from physics and philosophy?
Yes, exactly. And that's just absolutely true. The way people interpret reality has a lot to do with their state at the moment.
So she could have said, what a sort of durable Scottish specimen, if Donald Trump wasn't the worst human being on the planet.
Yeah, but she's already primed to look for the most negative things about it. And that just says about... So if we censored that, then we would not be given an
we wouldn't get to the gestalt of the experience and as a victim.
Yes. Yeah, and women put up with so much shit from men, like a slightly irregular penis on a man you otherwise like, not even a blip.
Well, you heard it here first. There's a lot of relief in the audience.
I really like this.
I heard one time I saw Trina, I think, like on the Breakfast Club or something, and I don't know. I'm probably this is like a reach even for TMBS to say Trina, but she's like a Rick Ross associate, Miami rapper. Had a crush on her back in the day, and it was really funny because some caller they called in and they asked her, and she she's a very sexual rapper, and they asked her like the size question. She's like, "Yo, I ain't gonna lie, like if you don't have enough, like why we bothering?" And I was just, I was like, oh man, the moans. Even the people in the studio, even Charlemagne looked uncomfortable.
P.S. Men with slightly irregular penises, not a marginalized class.
No, there's a brotherhood out there for you.
Wait, that was a little messed up to do the Law and Order hammer for that. I'm sorry. I apologize. I would be perfectly content to do penis jokes and Mario Kart sound drops for like the next 30 years. But are you saying so if Donald Trump wasn't Donald Trump, it's almost like she could have maybe even put a positive spin on it?
Yeah, she could.
These sound effects sound really happy.
She could have been like, it seemed normal sized, and I didn't notice anything out of the ordinary about it. And she might not have if she hadn't been, under duress when she was interpreting it in the moment.
I had to say that was always like when I would like grow up like listening to Howard Stern and like getting out of the realm of like these are not like these were just like him getting women to like just recount like how it was with various celebrities. I was like, oh man, it has to be so nerve-wracking. Imagine you're in a car and you just like flip on the radio and you realize like, oh, like I'm getting reviewed for like 30 million people right now. by some like ex-girlfriend. And I thought to myself, bring it on. Did a great job. Let's see. You are calling from a 301 area code. Who are you? Where are you calling from? You're calling from a 301 area code. Who are you? Where are you calling from?
Michael, is that you?
Yes, this is me.
It is Vito from Maryland. How are you?
Hey, what's going on, Vito? How you doing, man?
All right. So, just a couple of quick things. The first thing is, so you know, right, that this judge guy has now declined to testify under oath.
Yes.
So to me, that speaks volumes.
Right.
And then of course, the other thing about this whole thing, other than the whole sort of the left has sort of missed the boat on this whole judiciary thing. I think it's I don't know, it's pretty dire straits here. But anyway,
there are structural reasons for that, but go on.
It serves to illuminate that these right-wing elitist establishment, for some reason, the empowerment of women just sort of like scares the shit out of them. I don't know. I'm not sure like where all that comes from, but on a lot of these different issues, it's always sort of, well, they don't really know what they're doing or what they're talking about or what they're even on the issue of choice, right? It's like, well, when a woman decides to terminate a pregnancy, it's because she really just doesn't understand or know what she's doing. We have to save them from like the evil abortion doctor.
Well, I said I said on the first half, like infantiling. Like, I mean, I think that literally you're talking about people who infantilize women, and I mean, it's pretty clear. I mean, and as I say, I get allergic to, like, I don't like essentialism, which just like in the simplest sense of like that there's some type of essence that's connected to your identity that makes you one way or another, whether that be something we want to romanticize or put on a pedestal or something we want to, demonize and oppress. So I'm not into disco. Like, I think, Christine Lagarde saying, if it was Lehman Sisters, there wouldn't be a financial crisis. Stupid, trash,
Jesus Christ,
corporate feminism from, ironically, someone who's had corruption probes targeted at her herself. Nonsense. And these, but more destructively and more prominently are people who, essentialize women to downgrade them and treat them as second-class citizens. And whether that's, I think it's probably, I'm less comfortable on this ground than I am on other issues just in terms of my knowledge base, but my assumption is like things probably do start in an economic way. That's how I view most things. But then cultural narratives and, they take on their own force and their own determination. And I'll tell you, man, like I'm not naive in terms of like sexism in this society and in broader society, but I am definitely in some ways, because the fucking rate of just like, even honestly, like a guy like Mark Judge, I know I'm fixated on it, but it's like, what the fuck? Like, you're 50 years old? Like, what are you doing? It's just...
Yeah, apparently he scrubbed out, like, all of his YouTube stuff.
Well, of course he had to scrub out all of his YouTube stuff. Or even look at, like, Al Franken. Like, look, I'll be really blunt. I don't think Al Franken should have given up his seat. I don't like the way the Democrats did that politically. All of these things. I'll stipulate all of that. And at the same time, it's like, what? What? Yeah. Who the fuck taught you how to act like that? What's the
I don't know. Maybe
That's again the word is
women. I don't know.
The word is embarrassing. It's embarrassing. And yes,
it's really embarrassing.
They talk about women's medical decisions like, I mean, it's so hard because it's like a talking point. Now people are like, "Oh, I'm sorry. Why should men say something about women's bodies?" But it's like, no, literally think about that for a second. Why should you say something
it's one thing for a man to
women?
say, that's a woman's issue. I don't want to get involved in it or whatever. But the other whole thing where they're like, I think I really need to tell you what you should be doing because you just can't figure it out or don't really know. I've never known anybody that would decide to didn't put any thought, okay, into a decision like terminating a pregnancy. It's like they treat them like it's like they're stupid or something.
I'm not
talking.
talking.
You're right. Like you said,
To
it's
say the
really
least.
embarrassing.
To say the least, it's disgusting. It's embarrassing.
Well, that's also a lot easier politically than saying that what they actually say they believe, which is that all women who or abortion equals murder, right? Like it's easier to infantilize than to call them all women who have abortions murderers.
Right, or to just even say, I don't think that that women should not have just broad agency. Anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, it all goes back. I mean, it's not 100% overlapping with capitalism, but there is definitely a connection that I always try to draw. Like we talk a lot about social reproduction, or I do, right? Like when you are having a child, you're not just doing something personally meaningful to you. You are raising the next generation of workers. So when women have control over when and how they do this kind of labor, that's threatening to them. And if I just thought about this, but you will note, like some of the only concessions that the Trump people are willing to make to any kind of, I don't even want to say social democratic, but like
not social.
Liberal, economically liberal policies like parental leave, that's Ivanka's thing. It relates to that. So it's
but
interesting.
It is just, I mean, I hear, I think you're right on like a point level. I just need to be pedantic and say it's totally fraudulent. like what they're
guys,
offering.
I'll talk to you later.
Yeah,
well,
thanks,
certainly.
Totally fraudulent. And I don't think there's anything wrong with saying like supporting people who choose to have families, of course, is also another, clear goal of social democratic policies, obviously. But I mean, yeah, I don't know, man. You're calling from Skype.
Yeah.
Skype.
Yeah.
Yeah. Goodbye. I'm sorry. I'm very tough with the callers. I don't do this lax Jewish stuff. I'm just kidding. Yeah. We're going to get back to the sort of stuff around Kavanaugh in a minute. But this is Donald Trump. He's still bitching and complaining about Jeff Sessions. It's, I think what's relevant about this is when he actually starts, like if he gets to a point where he pulls a trigger and he fires him, and it's going to be another demonstration of, Mick resistance in the Republican Party. And also, the two different tracks of Trumpism, right? It's clown fascism. It's this xenophobic, ethnic cleansing assault on America. And then the other track is, I really don't want to get exposed. So Jeff Sessions is doing a great job on racism, destroying families, empowering brutality, the drug war, just being a generally obscene, disgusting little segregationist. But could be doing a stronger job on protecting Donald Trump from all of the corruption probes around him. And Trump's got some feelings about that.
I'm disappointed in the Attorney General for numerous reasons, but we have an Attorney General. I'm disappointed in the Attorney General for many reasons, and you understand that.
The question was, you said you didn't have an Attorney General. What did you mean by that? It's like, well, okay, I didn't technically mean it.
Yeah.
Take me, what is it?
Take me seriously, but not literally. He's literally there, but he's not firing people at law enforcement agencies. He's not literally getting involved in stopping criminal probes of all of my endless scandals. I think we all know what I'm saying here. Not doing a bad job putting kids in cages, but whatever. Maybe he's doing a bad job at that too. I don't know. What do I know? I'm just a president, right, Jeff? You're calling from a 509 area code. Who are you? Where are you calling from?
Hey, bro.
Hey, bro.
My name is John Miller, and I'm calling with some comments for your program right now.
John Miller, go ahead.
First of all, I have 3 points to make. Number one, I am not Don Jr. Number
Noted.
two, On yesterday's program, you engaged in some pretty embarrassing body shaming of the President of the United States. Now, I agree the President totally sucks, even though low-key he seems to be doing a kick-ass job and the economy totally is really good right now. But that doesn't mean you guys should be body shaming him. And frankly, I think you owe him an apology.
I don't think it's forthcoming, though.
Number 3,
yes.
I think it's important to note, especially for your lady listeners, that penis size, shape, or length are not hereditary through the father.
Wait, is this?
Anything,
okay, go ahead.
If anything, a father can have a really small, weird-ass penis, and his son can have a badass baby arm situation, if you know what I mean.
So, in other words, just to say say your dad, obviously not your dad, a porn star who he had like 20-second unprotected sex with. She's still obviously just kind of physically scarred by the experience for a variety of reasons. Let's be honest, not just the bulbous Yeti thing. That person's son, which you are not, that dude, might be
totally
like
and
have
just because
no
your dad
problem.
has an embarrassing pube situation and maybe some hygiene problems does not mean that your kid is in the same boat. So I just want to make sure everybody knows that, first of all, body shaming is totally bad and not woke of you guys. But also, this says absolutely nothing about E-Dog or DJ, a.k.a. Don Jr. Okay? And also,
Even
shout out to
E-Dog?
Baron.
Even E-Dog.
Well, look, I mean, all I'm saying is it's not predictive, okay? In a scientific sense, so to speak, if you will.
I will. Okay. I buy it.
Okay, thank you for taking my call.
John Miller, thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right.
And they ended up finding themselves in this whole irony, and it's just kind of amusing.
Yeah. Is that Eric or Don?
Eric.
Jesus Christ. What the fuck is going on? You're calling from a 972 area code. Who are you? Where are you calling from?
Hey, Michael, this is Will from Austin. Can you hear me all right?
I cannot hear you well at all.
We can hear your room better than your voice.
Yeah.
Can you hear me all right now?
Yeah, that's a lot better. Go ahead.
Okay. Hey, I'm calling about just love, I guess. Like, in this society, it's really hard to just kind of reach out to people these days.
Mm-hmm.
Something about technology actually take us farther apart. And since I can't really look at my phone so that you guys can't hear me on the Bluetooth, I just want to give you guys a hot tip to check out at Classic Liberal, that liberal with a 3 instead of an E, who shared a certain user at Laura Loomer very embarrassingly reaching out to Prison Paul of Pitbull Wars.
Nathan,
yeah, we saw
Nathan Bernard is relentless.
Nathan Bernard is left-wing Cernovich, but good.
Yeah, he's good. I like Nathan Bernard. I like him. He's a pit bull on this shit. I love it.
Well, sorry I missed the boat if you guys already talked about it. So,
no, we haven't talked about it.
No, we haven't talked about it. Maybe we will. Thanks for the call, brother. Appreciate it. Yeah. That is
What happened?
I don't know. Is you going to pull it
Oh,
up?
Actually, no, it was Peter Norway, classical liberal. Said, when Prison Paul won't date you because of the left. Oops. And it goes through a series of Laura Loomer tweets. Looking for a hot date? To hashtag deplorable, taking applications at Prison Planet. Holla at me. So tags him. At Cernovich, please help me convince Prison Planet to be my date for deplorable. Blah, blah, blah. Another one. And then she tweets, the left has ruined love. 20 years ago, people in their 20s had higher marriage rates. The marriage rate has declined along with the rate of long-term relationships.
Right.
Liberals want to destroy natural chemistry between men and women. It's
right.
sad.
Yeah, because marriage is totally equivalent with natural chemistry.
Also,
Always.
this is sort of like weird tweeting to a fucking like mid-level Alex Jones associate is supernatural.
Die alone, Laura Loomer. That's my final word on that.
And you're right. I shouldn't follow up with my tag on that.
It's better than she deserves.
Okay. All right, just take a second. It's fine because we need a palate cleanser before I do this next story.
Exactly.
That was what I was trying to say. All right, I'm just going to do this for a minute. There's no good way to transition to this. A new report from Save the Children, which is a credible NGO, it's a UK-based NGO, is anticipating that more than 5 million children are at the risk of starving because of the ongoing U.S. Saudi UAE air war in Yemen, which has already caused cholera outbreaks. It's already killed thousands of civilians and not done, of course, anything to resolve the political crisis and power sharing agreements that are needed in that country. And now the report is predicting that as the wars continue, the lack of food and rising fuel prices could jeopardize up to 5 million more children. The UK-based charity said on Wednesday that any disruption to the Hodeidah port, which is a key transit point in Yemen, they import most of their food. The entry point for the bulk of Yemen's commercial imports and aid supplies could kill an entire generation of Yemeni children. Hodeidah has been the scene of fierce fighting in recent weeks as Houthi rebels who control the city battle forces loyal to exiled President Abdu Rabdu Mansour Hadi, who is backed by Saudi, the United States, the UAE, and the United Kingdom. Millions of children don't know when or where their next meal will come. According to the NGO, more than two-thirds of Yemen's population, 64.5% of all Yemenis, don't know where their next meal will come from. The UN has also warned that a failure to keep food, fuel, and aid flowing into Yemen, particularly through Hodeidah, could result in the worst hunger crisis in living history. Ken Klippenstein, speaking on TMBS 2 weeks ago, said that, and he covers this extensively. First of all, of course, companies like Raytheon, who are, I believe, who sponsor nice multicultural initiatives for girls' education in the United States, are literally selling the bombs that are murdering, incinerating, and splitting apart children's bodies in Yemen. And arms manufacturers are doing quite well and extensively lobbying people on both sides of the aisle to make sure that nothing's done to rein in the mass murder that the United States, the UAE, Saudi Arabia, and the United Kingdom are committing in Yemen every day. Klippenstein actually did say, though, that there is some momentum in Congress to halt U.S. support. And U.S. support is essential. Without those refueling and weapons, actually the Saudis couldn't do this. The Saudi military is sort of a shell. It's not particularly robust on its own, and it's dependent on that type of support and relationships for this extensive amount of damage. So there was a Bernie Sanders, Chris Murphy, Mike Lee bill last year. There's been pushes in Congress. Ro Khanna is doing a lot on this. You can actually do something about it. Of course, the Trump administration is fully on board and has even escalated the Obama administration's already abominable and disgusting support for this. But there is momentum to potentially stop this, and we should all take note of it and be on it as much as we can. You're calling from a 206 area code. Who are you? Where are you calling from?
What up, Mike? It's your boy Alex from 206, a.k.a. Seattle. How you doing, man?
Doing well. Good to hear from you. What's on your mind?
Oh, well, this is a sequel to another call I did. I finished reading Jordan Peterson's Maps of Meaning, and I thought I might share with you some of his daring insights.
Wow.
I feel an impending sense of doom.
You're basically a troop.
Overwhelming sense of impending
Yeah.
doom.
I have to read the fucking thing too for this book I'm writing. All right, go ahead.
All right. Well, I first want to say that, like, Nathan Robinson had it pegged very well. It's one of the most nonsensical books I've ever read.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it took me 4 months to finish because I'd be reading a page and I'd be like, what the hell is this asshole talking about? And I'd read it over and over and over again, and I'd be like, oh, that's what he's saying. Absolutely nothing of value. But, like, yeah, and, but there's some parts of it that are really creepy, and, there's a lot I could get to, but I think I'll talk about his stuff on immigrants, because that's the creepiest part.
That's in Maps of Meaning?
I wrote Maps of Meaning.
Okay, so the politics are already there. Okay. All right, go ahead.
Yeah, so, unfortunately, I started writing things down as it got weirder and weirder.
It's fine.
But I didn't write all of it down.
It's fine. Go with what you got.
So, yeah. No, I'm just telling you that I won't have page numbers for all of this, but I'll have some of it because last time I called you displayed it. But around between page 90 and page 100, he says that culture, and he means European culture, is like a castle and a walled garden.
Right.
And that if you let in too many immigrants,
Yep.
they will completely destabilize and destroy the entire society and culture. And he calls this impulse feminine for some reason.
Well, because the feminine is open. And I'm not even trying to make a dirty joke. I mean, I am, but that is actually what he argues. Yes. It's open and receptive. The feminine opens legs. The masculine builds walls. Oh, no, I drank cider. I need to lay down.
Here's a footnote from footnote on 481 from around that idea. By the way, I've read the book he's quoting from, and it doesn't say at all what he's saying. But here's what he says on immigrants. It is of additional interest to note the Egyptians prohibited foreigners from entering their sanctuaries, which were microcosmic images of the country. Native Egyptians were the only rightful inhabitants of Egypt. Foreigners only brought disorder.
I mean, yeah. I mean, there you go.
Here's another one. Early on, I couldn't find this quote, so I might be misremembering it. But he says at one point that if different cultures and races live in the same society, it will inevitably bring chaos. So you need to have societies that are racially and culturally homogenous. I couldn't find that one, but I found a similar one on page 250. The simplistic promotion of cultural diversity as Panchaea is likely to produce only nihilism and conservative backlash. Molding into a coherent culture can only be accomplished by a war between paradoxical elements, such as integrating those people and making them subvert to the normative culture. Such a war is so difficult that the murder of every single anomalous other in the traditional morally acceptable way, the traditionally morally acceptable guise of war, frequently seems a compelling alternative.
That's true in terms of, in some ways he's diagnosing, I think, some, actual history there. But this is the part where he gets more complicated and what I'm dealing with in the book, where he puts his fingers on actual legitimate challenges and real things and then has a horrible diagnosis for them. So, that's the part where there's parts where he's just hey, I'm a fascist. And then there's other parts where he's here's something that's actually going on. And now I'm going to lead you down a pathway to fascism. But it's tricky because I think at times that, if we want to defeat these people, at some points we're also going to have to deal with where they're actually identifying actual challenges. So That's part of the paradox of it.
Not to mention, Jordan Peterson himself is from another country. So what's he really talking about?
Get out of my country.
But the thing is that, like, I know, and through this entire book, he, like, equivocates and flip-flops and caveats everything.
Right, of course.
But, I mean, just, like, the general tone, like, the first 100 or so pages are basically a neo-reactionary manifesto.
Yep.
He talks about our need to set up the divine state and that women and married couples need to subjugate themselves to God.
Fucking
A. But later it's like a concerns-fully liberal thing. The reason I picked that passage is because of other things he said, like
we got to keep it going. We got to keep it going. But I mean, as I say, I'm working through this too. Thanks for the flag, man. I hope you didn't spend too much money getting that book over the internet. I hope you were able to find a used copy. Thanks, man.
The whole thing about the culture as a castle is that's a way.
That's pretty overtly fascist.
Well, and it's also been, if you look at when that has been sort of felt throughout history, which is definitely true in American history, right? That's what the sort of city on a hill but Puritan thing, don't go into the woods sort of thing, right? And what that led to was a completely psychotic culture where they were like killing people for being witches.
Right.
Exactly. Because they knew that the woman's... It wasn't that they were...
But
it's not like they were witches. It's like their period juice went onto the flower beds, and that causes a hormonal change, which we need to be precise about.
It was specifically cultural paranoia that caused that. Like one of the first figures in the witch trials, as far as I remember, was I think a slave girl, Indian slave girl, I believe, called Nalima, and they freaked out at her, and they're sort of like paranoia about race mixing at the time.
Could you not literally see? Like, I don't even know you need to pluck him out of his modern suit. You could just drop Jordan Peterson back in that time and be like,
burn the witch.
Yeah, exactly.
The castle's been disrupted by witches' brews.
Exactly.
If they didn't want to get burned at the stake, they wouldn't have put so many curses on me.
If they didn't want to be burned at the stake, then maybe they wouldn't have tried to pass me cider. She said it's a refreshing drink, but I know it's an assassination plot, and now her whole family needs to be burned. All females going back to each generation backwards and forwards. Sam Harris and I are going to have a debate about this later.
That's so depressing, actually, because it's like, no, it's like not the same time, but like thinking back, it was like, no, the transcendentalists were better.
Tituba was the slave. Sorry,
Tituba was the slave.
It's really on my list. I need to read Caliban and the Witch by Sylvia Federici. Have you guys read that?
Mm-mm.
It's kind of about the history of capitalism and patriarchy, specifically through the lens of the persecution of witches. Sounds really interesting.
That sounds super interesting. You're calling from a 203 area code. Who are you? Where are you calling from?
Hello, this is Jay.
Hey,
I wasn't
Jay.
supposed to say that. I was going to use a fake name and tell a bunch of jokes.
You could have said that
about
was
my
a
friend
fake name.
Mark Judge.
Mark Judge.
Yeah, or as he calls himself, judge not lest ye be judged, or Mark don't judge for short is his other nickname.
Oh my God.
Yeah, well, you got to have cover when you're out there living real life. And I didn't get to call into your program last night.
Mm-hmm.
Mark and I were down at the Hooters,
right,
getting warmed up for our weekly visit to Planet Fitness, where we offer the young ladies $10 to let us videotape them drinking out of the end of a garden hose, or $20 to let us videotape them scratching their backs by reaching way over their shoulders. There's another good one. Mark and I go way back.
These are all I feel like you're like practically living with Mark Judge. Like none of these activities would surprise me.
I'm not going to be a customer, but I would like to see a detailed rate card.
No, you can DIY most of this stuff. To tell you the truth, I just have a few pointers. Mark and I go way back. We were the original Koch brothers. if I'm not being too subtle. When he wrote his memoir when we were down in Cancun. He was going to call it a Million Little Nachos, but then the James Fry book came out, so he retitled it, what did he call it? Wasted. And,
yeah, it was a good title.
This
is definitely one of these people.
Down.
One of these people who thinks that, like, because they did a little bit of fucking coke, that they're interesting. How many people you meet is like, they literally think that there's some type of translative property between a substance. It's like, dude, you're still boring. It's like, I get it. I understand.
You're just faster at it.
Yeah, you're fast boring.
I wanted to, taking things away from the more tawdry, and in any event, Mark Judge won't be able to testify. He's going to leave the country. He'll be at Hedonism 2 in Negril probably during the rest of the hearings. All right, that's my
Jay, you are on a roll.
Hedonism
2 in Negril. Jesus, that is like every single, you've hit all of the like unfortunate southern zone countries that these idiots flock to. You've hit like the Planet Fitness.
I didn't say anything about Captain Morgan Spice rum, though.
Oh, no, I think that goes without saying. Thanks for the call, Jay. Oh, sorry, go ahead. You had another point? Sorry, go ahead. Jay? Oh, all right. Sorry.
You'll hang out with Mark?
Yeah, I thought he was on a roll. Veva, I personally believe Michael Brooks has to be a guest on the Joe Rogan podcast. I agree.
By law.
The way he contextualizes politics and policies gives the young as well as the not-so-old left a good representation. I used to agree on some areas and tolerate JD, but lately I'm finding it really hard to stand by the dumb rhetoric. I kind of agree with the sentiment of not choosing between the lesser of two evils, but now
you shouldn't.
That change is happening. Better candidates and clearer options are rising. He keeps on pushing a reactionary narrative. Steam coming out of ears. Sorry, I didn't want to rant, but I had to share. Recently, I became a patron in July of both Sam and Michael. Oh, thank you. Money well spent. Left is best. Michael Brooks Rogan podcast. Give Michael a chance. I think though what you said. I thank you, but what you said about Jimmy Dore is like. I mean, we've talked about it, but it's extremely revealing. And apparently, we're not gonna play clips of him. I don't think unless it really rises. But I know apparently now he has like got a anti-AOC clip or something. It's the game he's playing is quite getting clearer and clearer. And look, I mean, obviously it was stupid at the time. And how to vote in 2016 if you were in a swing state, I'm sorry, it's totally obvious, but a lot more room. There was both a little bit more room, in my opinion, for that sort of generalized rage, and also some of the things that he wanted are actually happening, just not in the time frame and with all the parameters that he demands in his fantasy sports league version of politics.
But he can't really admit to wanting
it.
It's weird.
So the goalposts keep changing, and meanwhile, all of a sudden, we're spending more time, bitching about MSNBC segments than talking about like what is happening to the country and to the world, and that's messed up.
So I say vote third party, no matter what, no matter where you are. I don't care if you're in a swing state.
Stupid.
He needs to read Marx.
Stupid.
Among other things.
Yeah.
But I think that's right. I think like when people say we're like neoliberals compared to Jimmy Dore, I think like Jimmy Dore has no class analysis. It's the establishment.
No, it's all.
He has the exact same characters in his class analysis that Steve Bannon has.
Right.
Which should tell you something.
That should tell you something. Bad Cedar Cider. I'd like to point out that the same Trump said that investigating sexual assaults isn't really the FBI's thing. Also asked Comey to investigate PP tape rumors so Melania would know it wasn't true. That's a good point. Oh, Jesus. The mushroom head. Yeah. So far, Senator Grassley has said that if Kavanaugh's accuser doesn't testify Monday, that they will go ahead with the vote. On the other hand, the victim, Christine Ford, is asking the FBI to investigate her testifying. Looks like Grassley is prepared to push this through even under intense pressure, and I don't see any way it can be stopped. Yeah. Although I am not totally unconvinced that the plug might not be pulled on Kavanaugh anyway. They can stick somebody through in a recess appointment and campaign on this as some type of Democratic travesty in the midterms. So I wouldn't put anything past him. Grassley has just been Jesus Christ. Watching that guy is definitely another strong signifier of the late stage decline of American empire, capitalism. We've heard enough. I remember the first time I got with a girl at Dairy Queen. I thought Cory Booker was my Negro friend, but he's not. I want this vote. Let's see. Jen from St. Louis. Matt and Brendan, please save the Pac-Man losing sound effect drop. Too fucking funny for those of us who are Sam's age. Thank you. I was a teenage... Okay. I was a teenage rape wolf. Michael,
What?
I don't even...
Someone's going to clip you saying that.
Right. F you. Did I? Yeah. Michael, the other day you said referred to some lame pundit as a Mandarin. Does that mean he aligned with Trump or something else? I don't know what I was referring to.
That's a good question. What did you mean?
I think, Mandarin's not really, I think Mandarin's like sort of someone of the establishment or trained, like a foreign policy Mandarin.
A courtier functionary.
Courtier, like a David Gergen would be like a Mandarin. I don't know who I was talking about.
I wonder where that is that like a Chinese thing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's see. Jamie is my spirit animal. Mike, how would you set a $15 or $20 minimum wage while addressing small businesses? Are there any senators you like other than Warren or Sanders? Well, in the short term, in the relative sense, you could obviously create tax incentives and set provisions to protect small businesses and create sort of exemptions and
attack centralization.
And basically just attack centralization and use all sorts of other mechanisms to suck money out of conglomerates and redistribute them to not only workers through higher wages, but also to small businesses. More broadly, I'm interested in people owning their own businesses and a bigger democratization of the economy. I like Jeff Merkley. I like Jeff Merkley, and there's a handful of other ones. I like certain things that Sherrod Brown does. I like certain things that Kamala Harris does. I like certain things that Chris Murphy does. I even have liked some things that Cory Booker has done. But probably as far as like ones that I like, Bernie Sanders. Like I kind of like Elizabeth Warren. I think Bernie Sanders really is probably my sole senator I like.
Yeah,
and
same.
would be enthused to vote for list, to be honest.
I honestly, most of the time I go to vote, and maybe this is just because I was in North Dakota in a red state. I'm excited to vote against people, right? Like that's what I liked in the Cuomo thing. Like, sure, Cynthia Nixon's great. I like what she's saying about criminal justice and marijuana laws, obviously, but Cuomo is a fucking asshole, and I like putting that check mark down against him.
Yeah, it felt good. It actually did feel good to put the check mark against Cuomo. And then that Bodega Boys cold open made me feel like a fool. At least I didn't do an Instagram picture with an I voted sticker. He's like, you fucking cornballs.
I did that.
With your I voted stickers. You think some redhead's going to make me take an L? You fucking cowards. The only problem with the Bodega Boys Andrew Cuomo impression is it's so much more like if Andrew Cuomo really was just like, I'm like the boss of the Bonanno family, except I'm the governor, he would be so much more likable. Okay. We got to get to a bit more sound. Do we want, we'll loop back to Barry Weiss. Let's just do a little, this actually isn't a palate cleanser. This is your cringe of the millennium. This is a Matt pick, I would say. Apparently, at one point, Kennedy was cool.
She's a satirist, per Wikipedia.
Her coolness definitely, I think, predates all of us. Because wasn't she like a VJ or something in the 90s?
Yeah, like first wave MTV VJ.
Like, here's Taking Back Sunday.
Yeah.
Oh, my God. Before that.
No way.
And
oh, yeah.
I don't even know. Brendan
knows.
I thought that the point was that she was like wasn't she on some libertarian bullshit?
There's like a wave of female comics that become libertarian, like news people or like talking heads, it's like an avenue that continues to pop up.
Is there another one you can name?
There's the woman who is on Eric, what's his name? The dude on Fox News. His son died.
Eric Bolling.
Eric Bolling on Eric Bolling's short-lived show. Kate something or another. I'll look it up.
Oh, there's Victoria Jackson too.
She's not a libertarian though.
She's
on
like
some
a crazy
other-
right winger.
Yeah, well, they're all crazy right wingers, but she's of the Tea Party variety. But the only reason I ask, I don't care about Kennedy in any way, shape, or form. The reason I ask is I thought that if you were pretending to represent the edgy Gen X, I want people to starve on the street and corporations to have, well, actually, let's swoop back to the beginning of the show, massive pig shit lagoons as an example, because they're not regulated by the federal government. But I'm a cool libertarian, so maybe I wouldn't say this on Fox, but maybe there's even a hint that I might have smelled marijuana. That's the kind of edgy person I am as a libertarian. I don't know how this segment fits into that brand for Kennedy or anybody who's ever said that she's funny, cool, or a good broadcaster or
satirist.
Or a satirist or anything. This is very cringe.
Topic number 2. There it is. There was a time when Coca-Cola reportedly put traces of cocaine in their soda pop, but now the company is turning over a new leaf. The soft drink giant is reportedly in talks with a Canadian pot farm to develop a series of marijuana-infused beverages. Because why should Diet Coke drinkers be paranoid about their weight when they could be paranoid about the Illuminati? The company claims they have no interest in the psychological effects of the drug, but rather the functional wellness effects. Which is the marijuana equivalent of saying you read Playboy for the articles. The deal is not yet finalized, but Coca-Cola's stock has been on an upswing since the news surfaced. In fact, the only thing that's been higher in the past week is Elon Musk. Yeah, Joe Rogan, I'm going to space. I'm going to sell my company to the Saudis. What? Topic number 3.
I don't have a response to that. That's embarrassing.
Why is she talking like this, man?
I did like her workshopping her Elon Musk impression.
Hey,
Elon,
buddy, it's Elon,
hey, man, it's Elon. I date Grimes and I don't inhale, man. You think we could kidnap Azalea Banks for a fucking orgy, man?
Any remaining thought that I had in my head about how Kennedy was a cool person is gone.
What thought did you have in your head that this woman was a cool person?
Once upon a time,
I don't remember her as a VJ.
I watched the YouTube video of her talking to Marilyn Manson on the television, and I was like, oh, cool. But nope, not cool.
I don't know about any of this. What does Marilyn Manson do anyways these days? Was he like a stockbroker?
He's probably a podcaster.
Yeah, he's probably like, welcome back to the Manson experience.
He's a lush. I saw the set piece fall on him, actually. I was there when that happened.
I didn't know that happened.
He was, we listened to different music, clearly.
The only reason I really even remember is because I just watched the Defiant Ones documentary, and Interscope, in addition to the music that I listened to, also dealt with 9 Inch Nails and Marilyn Manson. And I feel like the gangster rap of the 90s does hold up more than like Marilyn Manson.
9 Inch Nails holds up. I will defend to the death.
No.
Marilyn Manson.
No, I was
not
actually,
so much.
No,
embarrassing.
I was gonna say, while 9 Inch Nails was not my thing, watching the doc, it was like, yup, that does hold up more.
And Trent has had a great career since then.
It is ironic that that guy is a Apple executive now. Like, no hate, but it's just ironic.
Who?
Trent Reznor.
He is?
Yeah.
What?
He's
part
Apple
of the
Music
Apple
curator
he's
or
Apple.
something.
No, he has a more real job than that. Yeah, I think he was part of the acquisition team he wasn't on Beats, but he was brought in as part of that like wave with Irene and Dr. Dre. So
Don't
that was
tell me
kind of
that.
funny. It's all right. He did well. Good for
But
him.
Marilyn Manson, problematic fave. Childhood fave, I will admit.
The other comedian, libertarian woman on Fox News I was thinking of is Catherine Timpf, who is 29.
Who I've never heard of.
She was on the Fox News Specialist with Eric Bolling and Ebony Williams before Bolling was
Before Eric Bolling go papa. Let's loop back to this. Barry Weiss, who is, I mean, just the mediocrity gets rewarded in this culture is just amazing. Barry Weiss, yeah, I mean, I don't know. She was fast tracked. She was at Tablet. She's at New York Times. She writes concern trolley, sort of faux provocateur, but confirm all of the anxiety and prejudices of the Upper East Side, Westchester, and parts of Beverly Hills. She has a big free speech brand, even though she tried to get people fired for actually engaging in a serious issue when she's in college, namely the literal structural oppression of Palestinians.
And then she lied about it more recently.
She's also, of course, a launderer for the intellectual dark web. But in the process of reading this book, and I'm vamping a little bit because the video isn't loading, but in the process of researching this book that I'm writing for Zero Books, she's definitely not really meriting of a chapter or even a section. Like, this is not somebody who has, Jordan Peterson, Sam Harris, these guys have thought. I think it's mostly just sort of like bad and unimpressive thought. But Barry Weiss, whew.
I'm sorry, the Media Matters appears to be down.
Media Matters. Wait, good job, Media
I
Matters.
totally buried the lead earlier, by the way, when I was plugging Antifada. I know it's uncouth to do it again. Sean has a brand new karaoke song about Barry Weiss. So
Barry Weiss.
I think it's pretty good.
We can't get this video. All right, I guess we'll go back to it. Is that it for videos?
Yeah.
Oh, all right. Oh yeah. Let's do that. Let's have some fun. Willie Nelson is doing a event for Beto O'Rourke. It makes sense for 3 reasons. 1, Willie Nelson is a Texan. Beto O'Rourke is running for Senate in Texas. 2, any sane, sentient human being, from, in this case, a moderate Republican to a Maoist, will go out and vote for Beto O'Rourke over Ted Cruz. Number 3, Willie Nelson's been a Democrat his whole professional life and has campaigned for Democrats from John Kerry to Dennis Kucinich to Barack Obama. But there's some idiots out there who think that a dope, cool, aging hippie who puts out awesome music, loves weed, and cares about justice and farmers would somehow support Ted Cruz. And they're sore about this? I mean, I know Snowflake, but this is like delusional Snowflake. Willie Nelson was asked about this by the ladies at The View. He has a good first answer, and then Abby Huntsman, the trust fund baby, the second trust fund baby edition of Republican Oligarchy on The View, is going to follow up with a revealing question, which Willie has the perfect answer to.
And people are shocked at that you would support a Democrat. Why? Why? Do they have some misunderstanding of you?
I don't know. I guess so, because I've been supporting Democrats all my life,
But I think they have this image that you don't. Why?
I don't know. I have no idea because I haven't hidden it that much.
Are you getting a lot of flack, and how are you dealing with it?
Oh, I love flack.
You love flack.
We're not happy till they're not happy.
Yeah.
It's you, Ben. Oh, I have another question here.
Does it bother you, though, about society that you're judged based off of who you like politically?
Do what?
Does that bother you that people would be upset about who you personally like politically?
Oh, not really, because everybody has an opinion, and everybody has a right to an opinion. So, I think I have one too.
Absolutely.
That's
awesome.
Perfect. Yeah, Matt, you can tee it off, but I love that response.
Well, the way Abby Huntsman asked that, it's clearly like, oh, I'm the conservative always ganged up on over here. Why can't people just let me be a person and ignore that I'm like caping for ghoulish behavior?
I'm literally advocating for policies that will personally benefit me and my family at the expense of tens of millions, hundreds of millions of people. And I just wish that people would just treat me like a person. There's a really fine balance between I agree. I think people who subsume their entire personalities and identities in all social circles just to politics, I don't think that's healthy, and I don't think that's an effective strategy, frankly. On the other hand, the idea that you can tell me, like, oh, well, I just want, poor people to starve. I mean, that's just my personal belief. I want gay people to be second-class citizens. That says something fundamentally about who you are as a person. So look, on a level of like socializing and, kibitzing somewhere, it doesn't matter. You can do that with anybody. But as far as like a friendship, and certainly as part of somebody's public presence, obviously their politics are going to reflect on them. And what kind of whiny, self-indulgent snowflake nonsense is that?
That's the secret thing, like the intellectual dark web means when they say we're willing to have conversations. What they mean is we're willing to have conversations where no one gets upset and calls us a racist because we're being racist, right? They only have conversations with people who are never going there.
Yeah, they'll never go there. I'm willing to have conversations with people who never fundamentally challenge me on anything. That's actually, in that sense, most of the world is a intellectual dark web. It was funny. Like, I was on Thaddeus Russell's podcast recently, and Thaddeus, I would say he's some type of libertarian in my estimation. Very radically different views of the economy. And it was funny because, like, and then we have some really strong agreements on people like Sam Harris. But, like, we had long stretches of that conversation where it was, like, baseline stuff. Like, fundamentally different views of the economy, of healthcare. I don't know. We seem to be able to not only have that conversation, but actually remain like affable with fundamental disagreement, not just like, I'm whining about college students because I don't ever want to be criticized for promoting racism. And I'm whining about college students because we have a garden and it's being trampled by feminists. And we both come from different places, but we agree about the practical thing about endlessly catastrophizing and bitching about college students, which is what those conversations are. They come from different epistemic points that are frankly pretty irrelevant, and then conclude on all of the same points always, which is that college students and the left and free speech and blah, 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 jerk-off motion.
Yep. And this emphasis on politeness and manners in the conversation is, obviously disingenuous because they do not mean to extend it to people on the left. Like,
never.
But they're such a bunch of little fucking hand raisers their whole entire lives that it's not enough for them to have freedom of speech on their own platforms. Like, they want their views to be mainstream. Barry Weiss wants her views to be accepted as legitimate and mainstream by the gatekeepers of the media and the discourse that she grew up respecting, and she wants us to be illegitimate.
No, it's totally true. And and in her case, and of course, like, I think there is some shift. I think it's true that, like, in the 90s, somebody like Sam Harris's Politics was the editorial page of the New Republic, and it's not today, obviously. But, Barry Weiss gets fact-tracked at the New York Times. It's the most influential newspaper, certainly in the United States, arguably in the world, and she does it by, going to an Ivy League college and holding the perfect pinpoint of safely, quote unquote, unconventional opinions, which exactly satiate the, baby boomer center right to neoliberal readership that, sort of gets like, oh, well, we should have a little bit of social programs, but these college students are really out of control, and Israel needs to murder people because you know what these Palestinians are like. And Barry Weiss, she nailed it again. And it's so controversial that somehow she always writes exactly what I think, but there's this imagined horde out there somewhere that disagrees with me that has no actual power.
I consider myself a there's no light without heat kind of guy when it comes to these sorts of things. And I actually think that, all these, like Brett Stevens announcing he's done with Twitter because it's toxic or whatever. Like, that's a democratic victory, and you can take that because, like the fact that we have these new communications technologies that allows us in sort of symbolically violent communication disagreements, right? And we have historically low levels of political violence still, right? There's still political violence, but compared to Weimar Germany, right? And I think that's actually a good thing, and I think that's why things like Medicare for all, like people are just those ideas do win on a long enough time scale. So I think this where we can have disagreements where I call you a racist and say what you're doing is a racist. That's the type of open exchange I want.
And you know what, by the way, to you and you also make this point too. I've been called a racist by, as an example, people who were, making ludicrous arguments on behalf of Hillary Clinton. I've been called a sexist. We've all been called.
Same.
Yeah.
I've been called a racist, and I've been accused of internalized misogyny.
And I don't agree with what they... It's like I said, I was on a panel once with a Republican, and it was during the 2016 primary when this was relevant. I really don't want to relitigate this stuff. But I was talking about the unbelievably cynical deployment of those issues by the Clinton campaign. And this Republican was like, oh, it's unbelievable to hear one of you guys talk about it because it happens to us all the time. And I said, oh, well, I could tell you the difference. You're racist. I'm not. So when it's about you, it makes sense. And I know that there's a certain type of dweeb in the audience going to be like, he's stating his own double standards. No, I'm stating a qualitative distinction between following an argument that if somebody says to me, you're ignoring a majority, which is literally one thing I got at one point before a South Carolina primary. Most, African-American state legislators have endorsed Hillary. You support Bernie. You're racist by not agreeing with them. That's an insane, demented, dumb, ridiculous, essentialist argument. I disagree with it. You support a party and have campaigned on everything from Willie Horton ads to vastly increasing prisons and eliminating women's rights across the board. So therefore, those words apply to you. But I think that's another good point, though. It's like, even in those conversations, sometimes people will bring that heat, and that heat is actually not well reasoned, not well argued, wrong and cynical. And guess what? If you have legs, you can respond to that.
There's a little phrase called, if the shoe fits, wear it.
Right. I mean, I'm not attached to Sam Harris being a racist. And I'm even willing to concede that by the unbelievably ridiculous, impoverished, hyper-personalized versions that these idiots peddle, that he's not. Okay? Sure, I don't think that Sam Harris wakes up and thinks, how can I hurt African Americans? And I don't think he meets somebody who's Mexican and hates them. But I do know that as a public actor, he is a mass promoter of racist and bigoted ideas. And so therefore, I say he's a racist. And also, conversely, for people on the other tip, I don't think people who do impressions and jokes are racist for doing them. Sorry, I don't.
Well, it depends on the oppression and the joke and the context and all of that
Sure,
stuff.
you can have those you can have those conversations, but not some people would say just as a matter of granite statement.
Well,
that going there, and I don't agree with that.
We need to define what we mean by racist, because, for instance, like Bodega Boys, which we mentioned earlier, they do impressions of people all the time, and they open acknowledge, like, okay, we did a Dominican voice.
Yeah.
That's mad racist, right? But that's what they say. And it turns out that, that's not what they're about, though, right? Like, that's not their project.
That's not who they are.
And they acknowledge that that's what they're doing, because...
Right.
Racist is it's not like necessarily a moral judgment. It's describing a type of activity. So when Sam Harris is and Charles Murray are talking about IQ of races, they're literally being racist. And that's the problem with Charles Murray, is he's looking at race as a predictor of unintelligence. When there's sort of an impression, right, that is sort of it's playing on different racial categories, but it's not like sort of making a prediction about like an individual person based on the race, right? It's
or perpetuating the structural barriers and narratives and things that actually keep
it can
those
be
systems
deconstructive.
It can be deconstructive. It can also just be funny, which is valuable and an innate reward in and of itself. You're calling from a 561 area code. Who are you? Where are you calling from? (561). Are you
Good
there?
afternoon. Hey, how's it going, guys?
Hey, what's up?
This is Mark calling from Palm Beach County. So I just had a quick comment, and the conversation kind of...
Hello? We're losing you. Hello? Did something happen over there? That's weird. Yeah, he just totally dropped off. All right. You're calling from a 717 area code. Who are you? Where are you calling from?
Hello, Michael.
Hey, what's up?
Hello, crew. Cindy from Pennsylvania.
What's up, man? What's on your mind?
Once again. Oh, nothing much. I just wanted to give a shout out to, he used to be a regular caller. I haven't heard from him in a while, but Mike from PA.
Yeah,
I love you. You do a lot of good work.
Yeah, he does great work. He must be out on the campaign trail, I'm assuming.
Yeah, I hope he's busy. I just wanted to call in, let you know you guys are doing a good job. I really enjoyed your anecdote on the opioid crisis, your conversation on Monday. And it reminded me of a New York Times article that I read on Sunday, talking about the generational battle, more or less, between millennials and, typically anyone older than us.
Okay.
I just wanted to see what you guys' take on that was.
Think about class, not generations.
What was the specific point of the article?
Well, specifically, I graduated high school in 2008. So it was all about coming to age in the aftermath of the crash.
Yeah, I would say focus more on the economics than the generations, but that's just my bias.
Yeah, boomer hate
Thanks for the call,
is
brother.
the class analysis of fools, in my opinion.
You're calling from a 501 area code. Who are you? Where are you calling from?
Hey, Michael. This is Blake from Arkansas.
Hey, what's going on, Blake?
First of all, everything, nothing, all at the same time.
I feel you.
I was the Molyneux caller from last week, but I don't want to talk about him.
Oh, yeah.
I kind of wanted to extend an olive branch and hopefully do something productive.
Okay.
I wanted to talk about your guys' stance on abortion. Now, you guys may not be aware of it, but there's a lot of libertarians in the conservative movement that aren't necessarily against abortion. I think that that right should be given, obviously, to women to make the choice. The one thing that I think where we miss one another is we never talk about the policy. There's things about abortion that are never talked about, like a father's choice, the responsibility, and also the money.
What do you? Well, let me just say.
There has to be a compromise at some point.
Well, I don't know what you mean. Let me just say real quick. I would totally accept the notion that there has to be, if two people are in a relationship, I do think that that's something that obviously they both have a stake in and both can talk about and both should have an influence over. That's obviously important. Legislating that is anything other than a woman's choice as a matter of legal option or policy, and anything that would sort of ultimately undermine her choice in that regard, for that specific decision, no. There's no compromise on. Well, I don't know what you mean in terms of money.
I'm completely all for enshrining, forever and ever, amen, the idea that it's a woman's choice. I'm not religious, but figure of speech. But you have to address some things. You have to address the costs.
What do you mean?
That are
what
subsidized
costs? What costs?
By Planned Parenthood, and also a father's rights in his choice and what he's responsible for if he has no bearing on the decision.
Oh, you mean well, I think that
I think he means in terms of public money, right?
Well, I think in terms of public money, we're just never going to see eye to eye because I am 100% for a complete, full, 100% government funding of healthcare. So that's not going to be a bridge. I think if I think there might be some legitimate. I guess if two people, if there's a scenario where two people had a one night stand, woman got pregnant, and all of a sudden a year later, some guy's getting sort of financially accountable. Yeah, that would really suck. I get it. I don't know what the answer to that is. I don't know.
The answer to that is fully socialized childcare.
I mean, that is also ultimately, you're not going to find any of these conversations that wouldn't be solved by having a universal, robust system of care for all, and then we'd be good to go, brother. Thanks for the call. I did a polite O'Reilly on that one. I was just like, that's why we need socialism. Thanks for the call. Yeah, but you have the last word, psych. All right.
Don't take it personally. That's the economy of time we have for the show. We have to be like this with calls.
Yeah,
Also,
absolutely.
Reminder, it is illegal currently for any federal funding to go to pay for abortions.
Which is wrong, and I would overturn.
The Hyde Amendment, folks.
The Hyde Amendment from another a relatively minor scumbag in history, but a scumbag nonetheless. And yes, that's right. That's right. I guess I was trying not to have an argument with the guy, and not stop his tracks on every point. But yes, government does not subsidize abortion on that specific point. That's true.
Some states do.
Some states do. The federal government does not. And Planned Parenthood should get vastly more funding. And Planned Parenthood is vital for women's health in all areas of women's health. And I would be shocked if you come from any kind of anywhere from middle class, certainly working class background, and you don't know women who have not benefited from Planned Parenthood, from any services they provide, from breast exams to abortion. You're calling from an 819 area code. Who are you? Where are you calling from?
Is this me?
Yep.
Hey, Michael, how's it going, man?
Hey,
really quick. So I was thinking, what do you think the chances are that when Trump saw the story about Stormy Daniels, that he actually thought about tweeting out a presidential dick pic, just sort of to close the case?
I don't think so, because I think she's being honest.
Wouldn't have helped.
I wouldn't have helped, but I could imagine a tweet storm coming. I'm sure that the phone has already been hidden from him on that one. I have no doubt.
Right. Well, my point was, I was going to say that, when dealing with fascism historically, the people have had to rise up and sort of like knock down the proverbial statue of the leader. And
Right.
I think that actually people like Stormy Daniels play a great social utility for the people that are trying to fight fascism.
I 100% agree with that. I agree. Even
though it's a bit ridiculous, but at the same time, it just plays a great social function for us. And
I agree.
Because it makes fascists look weak, because it's all about authoritarianism and looking strong and things like that. And I was wondering if you've seen what Tom Arnold is doing with Vice.
No. What's he doing?
He's trying to get the Trump tapes released from Mark Burnett of The Apprentice. The ones of him saying the N-word and making he's trying to make Don Jr. cry in a video, apparently. I work in media. I work in celebrity media, and I was covering a story of him filing a police report against Mark Burnett the other day.
That's
because
funny.
Mark Burnett choked him out at an Emmy party the other night, and so he filed a police report. Yeah, Tom's crazy, but he's serving a great function for America right now, and I recommend looking into what he's doing with Vice, trying to get these tapes released.
Well, Ronan Farrow apparently has the tapes.
Oh, he does.
Right, that's what he told me.
Okay. Are you on Twitter? You can tweet me. You can tweet me this. Maybe we could follow up on some stuff.
Yeah, it's sporadic jest. I can. I don't have very many followers. Don't make fun of me, but I'll send you.
Oh, never mind.
Oh, never mind. Forget it.
Right.
Sporadic, no count. All right. No, serious. No.
Right,
Follow up on.
No.
Follow up on
Sorry,
Twitter,
say that again?
please. No, for real though. Follow. I would. That's interesting, and I think your read on it is right. I think a lot of times the gutter's defeated by the gutter. Thanks for the call, man.
And I think it's the right way to fight Trump specifically too. So there you go. Cool.
Right. Thanks, man. All right, one more call, then we're out of here.
Nice.
Thank you. You're calling from a 662 area code. Who are you? Where are you calling from?
Hi, my name is Lori Bertram Roberts. I'm the executive director and co-founder of the Mississippi Reproductive Freedom Fund. We're the only abortion funding organization in Mississippi.
Oh, wow. Okay. Thanks for calling.
Hi. I met Sam at Netroots. I told him to tell you hi.
Hi. He did.
And Anoa was telling me you're a great friend to have, by the way. So you had a great compliment from Anoa.
Oh, awesome. I love Anoa.
But I know, I love her too. But I actually called to say that there was actually a question on the chat thread. I'm a big fan of the show, about whether or not abortion policy is actually linked to this whole notion of white genocide, and the answer is yes.
Yeah,
and it's
tee off
not
on
talked
that.
about enough.
Go off on it. Tell me. Tell us.
Yeah, and so I think that sometimes people do talk about the link between how the religious right has used abortion as a wedge issue because they really were mad about losing their 501c3 status, like Bob Jones University losing their 501c3 status because of their racist policies around interracial dating, right? If you don't know about that, Google it. It's very well documented that Jerry Falwell and them decided, hey, abortion is a great wedge issue. It's simple. I mean, there's even a documentary where he says, we needed a simple issue because evangelicals are simple people, and abortion was simple. So, like, that's been documented a lot. But what a lot of people don't talk about is that in the late 1800s and the early 1900s, abortion was seen as totally acceptable for white women, especially middle-class white women, and there was a lot of concerns that middle-class white women were overly accessing abortion and birth control, and that it needed to be stopped. And that's where a lot of the anti-birth control and anti-abortion laws came from, is this fear that non-white immigrants, quote unquote, and newly freed slaves were going to outpopulate white people.
Yeah.
Right? Because up until then, no one gave a damn about abortion. Like, churches did not give two fucks, excuse my language, about abortion.
Right.
Like, they didn't care. Up until the quickening, women could have abortions. Abortion pills and herbal remedies were advertised in newspapers openly. Mm-hmm. Churches did not care. And that the fact that all of this, the whole genesis of anti-abortion policy has always had a racial undertone, and that even the Hyde Amendment, the fact that y'all brought up the Hyde Amendment, even the Hyde Amendment it was used. What black women and poor women were used as a wedge because Hyde couldn't get to the women he really wanted to. He said, if I could ban abortion for everyone, I would, but I can't, so I'll just do it for these women.
Right.
So, like, whenever you see these targets where they're going, abortion is black genocide, that's all bullcrap. It's all a way to try to peel off black voters because they're not getting enough white people to buy into this stuff. And they know that black people are a solid progressive voting base, and they're trying to peel black folks off by exploiting our very valid fears and concerns about medical racism.
Right. No, I remember one time, this was a weird YouTube rabbit hole, but I was looking up something on Alex Jones, and I ended up, I love Dick Gregory, but I mean, Dick Gregory obviously was at a point in his career where he would, he'd hang out with anybody. And I guess, and he was on Alex Jones, and Alex Jones was actually really hyping him up, but at one point he was just like, and I think of all the black children that Margaret Sanger has killed, and I just cry. I was like, wow, that is
oh boy.
that is exactly what you're talking about. Yeah. Will you tell me? Yeah,
exactly. And it's so fake.
Right.
Sorry, what?
Would you tell me or tweet at me? I'm doing this a lot today, but I want you to have Noah get me your information, because this is actually something that, whether with you or book recommendations, this would be a great illicit history for my show. That would be excellent.
Of course.
And can you say the name?
And I love your show.
I really appreciate it. And just
also, Jamie, thank you for holding it down for the ladies, because there's not enough women voices on y'all's show. My major critique of y'all is that there's not enough women and not enough black people coming through your show.
Well, not
and
enough black people on Majority
I
Report.
told Sam that to his face.
On Majority Report. I think on TMBS we do a little bit of a better
I'm just
job.
saying, well, y'all not the majority no more.
Well, I'm all things.
I'm doing my best, so thank you.
Tell us your name and your organization again, please. Let everybody know, but then follow up, please, with me, whether directly or through a NOAA, because I really want to follow up on this.
No problem. I'm Lori Bertram Roberts. My organization is the Mississippi Reproductive Freedom Fund. We're a member fund of the National Network of Abortion Funds, and you can easily find us online at Fund MS Abortions on Twitter. So,
Great.
and I'm at Smart Statistic
At Smart
on Twitter,
Statistic.
so I'm easy to find.
Okay. I really appreciate the call. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you for everything that
Y'all
you're
have a
doing.
good day.
That's amazing.
Yeah,
Thank you.
You're on it. Thank you. We'll definitely follow
We're
up.
trying. We're just a group of poor black women trying to hold it down, but our work is innately socialist. So
Right.
Hell yeah.
Right. Yes. We're going to definitely have more conversations. I really appreciate this. Thank you so much. That is the last call of the day. Yeah. Sometimes you just, sorry to everybody else. It's mainly a time thing, but also sometimes you got to ride the wave of a high note.
Yeah. Sorry, Barry Weiss. We're not going to get to you either.
I can't watch Barry Weiss after I talk to her on the phone.
Good call.
That was a great call. Maria from Belchertown. Hello. I was a perfume salesman at the Berkshire Mall in the late. Oh, this is from last night. From the late 1990s, and I still have nightmares about a skunk-smelling Michael Brooks pretending to buy bottles of Jupe and Polo Sport. That was Alona and I were talking about covering up our drug habits to our parents, and my technique was just a disgusting overspray of Tommy Hilfiger and Nautica.
Works
colognes.
every time.
It did. I was like, can I get some pizza? No one's noticing anything because I smell like Tommy Hilfiger. Let's see. Embuenara, anything that hinders or just even slows the authority of neo-Confederate Robert Ballin evangelicals to do whatever they want to anyone they want is tyranny. Right. Contagious Chameleon. Wait, I'll get back to that. Chappie. Kavanaugh is also the author of the porn questions that Ken Starr asked Bill Clinton. Also, is this a job interview? Would you have gotten your job from your past if you accused you in the same way? Esha, would Barry Weiss be this forgiving if President Sanders nominated a justice who said free Palestine 35 years ago? Certainly not. Okay, the final IM of the day from Chris Lapaco. What's up, White Devil? Sorry for the long IM. Have you talked about Trump trying to slide into our DMs? Apparently, he wants the ability to text message every single person in the United States via FEMA mass alert. It's supposed to be used for natural disasters, terrorist attacks, nuclear bombs, etc. As it stands now, the text messages will be sent out in the first week of October. That's insane.
It's not making me feel good about that dick pic.
Emergency. And on that
it's a
absolutely horrifying note, we'll be back tomorrow. Thanks, everybody.
It might take all the strength I got to get to where I want, but I know somehow I'm gonna get there. I wasn't looking when I just got caught between the truth and the light bar, but finding out won't make me feel any better. Yeah, I know the clock is ticking, but the meds are gonna kick in, and my pilot light shining bright. I guess somewhere the choice was made for the option where you don't get paid, for the road that bends before it finally breaks you. I guess somehow I lost my drive between the 101 and the 5. Do you know how far the detour takes you? Yeah, I know the clock is ticking, but the meds are gonna kick in, and my pilot shifted in and